of Boulder Dead by Matthew Arnold. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com. Boulder Dead by Matthew Arnold, Part 2. Journey to the Dead. Forth from the east up the ascent of heaven Day drove his courser with the shining mane, and in Valhalla from his gable perch the golden-crested cock began to crow. Hereafter in the blackest dead of night with shrill and dismal cries that bird shall crow, warning the gods that foes draw nigh to heaven. But now he crew at dawn a cheerful note, to wake the gods and heroes to their tasks. And all the gods and all the heroes woke, and from their beds the heroes rose, and donned their arms, and led their horses from the stall, and mounted them, and in Valhalla's court were ranged, and then the daily fray began. And all day long they there are hacked and hewn, mid dust and groans and limbs lopped off and blood. But all at night return to Odin's hall, woundless and fresh, such lot is theirs in heaven. And the Valkyries on their steeds went forth toward earth and fights of men, and at their side Skalda, the youngest of the Nornies, rode. And over Bifrost, where is Heimdall's watch, past Midgard fortress, down to earth they came. There through some battlefield, where men fall fast, their horses fetlock deep in blood they ride, and pick the bravest warriors out for death, whom they bring back with them at night to heaven, to glad the gods and feast in Odin's hall. But the gods went not now, as other while, into the tilt-yard where the heroes fought, to feast their eyes with looking on the fray, nor did they to their judgment place repair, by the ash Yggdrasil in Ida's plain, where they hold council and give laws for men. But they went, Odin first, the rest behind, to the hall Gladheim, which is built of gold, where are in circle ranged 12 golden chairs, and in the midst one higher, Odin's throne. There all the gods in silence sate them down, and thus the Father of the ages spake. Go quickly, gods, bring wood to the seashore, with all which it beseems the dead to have, and make a funeral pile on Balder's ship. On the 12th day the gods shall burn his corpse, but Hermod, take thou Sleipner, and ride down to Hela's kingdom to ask Balder back. So said he, and the gods arose and took axes and ropes, and at their head came Thor, shouldering his hammer, which the giants know. Forth wended they, and drave their steeds before, and up the dewy mountain tracks they fared, to the dark forests in the early dawn. And up and down and side and slant they roamed, and from the glens all day an echo came of crashing falls. For with his hammer Thor smote mid the rocks the lichen-bearded pines, and burst their roots, while to their tops the gods made fast the woven ropes, and haled them down, and lopped their boughs, and clove them on the sward, and bound the logs behind their steeds to draw, and drave them homeward, and the snorting steeds went straining through the crackling brushwood down. And by the darkling forest paths the gods followed, and on their shoulders carried boughs. And they came out upon the plain, and passed Asgard, and led their horses to the beach, and loosed them of their loads on the seashore, and ranged the wood in stacks by Balder's ship. And every god went home to his own house. When the gods were to the forest gone, Hermod led Sleipner from Valhalla forth. Saddled him. Before that Sleipner brooked no meaner hand than Odin's on his mane. On his broad back no less a rider bore. Yet docile now he stood at Hermod's side, arching his neck and glad to be bestrode, knowing the god they went to seek how dear. But Hermod mounted him, and sadly fared in silence up the dark untravelled road, which branches from the north of heaven, and went all day, and daylight waned, and night came on. And all that night he rode and journeyed so, 9 days, 9 nights, toward the northern ice, through valleys deep engulfed by roaring streams. And on the 10th morn he beheld the bridge, which spans with golden arches Giles' stream. And on the bridge a damsel, watching armed, in the strait passage at the farther end, where the road issues between walling rocks. Scant space that warder left for passers by, but as when cowherds in October drive their kine across a snowy mountain pass, to winter pasture on the southern side, and on the ridge a waggon chokes the way, wedged in the snow, then painfully the hinds with goad and shouting urge their cattle past, plunging through deep untrodden banks of snow. To right and left the warm stream fills the air, so on the bridge the damsel blocked the way, and questioned Hermod as he came, and said, Who art thou on thy black and fiery horse, under whose hoofs the bridge o'er Giles' stream rumbles and shakes? Tell me thy race and home. But yestermorn 5 troops of dead passed by, bound on their way below to Hela's realm, nor shook the bridge so much as thou alone. And thou hast flesh and colour on thy cheeks, like men who live and draw the vital air, nor look'st thou pale and wan, like men deceased, souls bound below my daily passes here. And the fleet-footed Hermod answered her, O damsel, Hermod am I called, the son of Odin, and my high-roofed house is built far hence in Asgard, in the city of gods, and Sleipner Odin's horse is this I ride, and I come, scent this road on Balder's track. Say then, if he hath crossed thy bridge or no. He spake, the warder of the bridge replied, O Hermod, rarely do the feet of gods, or of the horses of the gods, resound upon thy bridge, and when they cross, I know. Balder hath gone this way, and taken the road below there to the north, toward Hela's realm. From here the cold white mist can be discerned, nor lit with sun, but through the darksome air by the dim vapour blotted light of stars, which hangs over the ice where lies the road. For in that ice are lost these northern streams, freezing and ridging in their onward flow, which from the fountain of Velgelma run, that spring that bubbles up by Hela's throne. There are the joyless seats, the haunt of ghosts, Hela's pale swarms, and there was Balder bound. Ride on, pass free, but he by this is there. She spake, and stepped aside, and left him room. And Hermod greeted her, and galloped by across the bridge. Then she took post again. But northward Hermod rode, the way below, and o'er a darksome tract which knows no sun, and by the blotted light of stars he fared. And he came down to ocean's northern strand, at the drear ice beyond the giant's home. Thence on he journeyed o'er the fields of ice still north, until he met a stretching wall, barring his way, and in the wall a grate. Then he dismounted, and drew tight the girths on the smooth ice of Sleipner Odin's horse, and made him leap the grate, and came within. And he beheld spread round him Hela's realm, the plains of Niflheim, where dwell the dead, and heard the thunder of the streams of Hel. For near the wall the river of Roaring flows, outmost the others near the centre run, the storm, the abyss, the howling, and the pain. These flow by Hela's throne, and near their spring, and from the dark flocked up the shadowy tribes. And as the swallows crowd the bulrush beds of some clear river, issuing from a lake, on autumn days before they cross the sea, and to each bulrush crest a swallow hangs, swinging, and others skim the river streams, and their quick twittering fills the banks and shores. So around Hermod swarmed the twittering ghosts, women and infants, and young men who died too soon for fame, with white ungraven shields, and old men known to glory, but their star betrayed them, and of wasting age they died. Not wounds, yet dying, they their armour wore, and now have chief regard in Hela's realm. Behind flocked wrangling up a piteous crew, greeted of none, disfeatured and forlorn, cowards, who were in sloughs interred alive, and round them still the wattled hurdles hung, wherewith they stamped them down and trod them deep, to hide their shameful memory from men. But all he passed unhailed, and reached the throne of Hela, and saw near it Balder crowned. And Hela sat thereon with countenance stern, and thus bespake him first the solemn queen: Unhappy, how hast thou endured to leave the light, and journey to the cheerless land, where idly flit about the feeble shades? How didst thou cross the bridge over Gale's stream, being alive, and come to ocean's shore? Or how overleap the grate that bars the wall? She spake, but down off Sleipner Hermod sprang, and fell before her feet, and clasped her knees, and spake, and mild entreated her, and said: O Hela, wherefore should the gods declare their errands to each other, or the ways they go? The errand and the way is known. Thou know'st what grief we have in heaven for Balder, whom thou hold'st by right below. Restore him! For what part fulfils he here? Shall he shed cheer over the cheerless seats, and touch the apathetic ghosts with joy? Not for such end, O queen, thou hold'st thy realm. For heaven was Balder born, the city of gods and heroes, where they live in light and joy. Thither restore him, for his place is there. He spoke, and grave replied the solemn queen: Hermod, for he thou art, thou son of heaven. A strange unlikely errand sure is thine. Do the gods send to me to make them blessed? Small bliss my race hath of the gods obtained. 3 mighty children to my father Loke did Angerbode the giantess bring forth, Fenris the wolf, the serpent huge, and me. Of these the serpent in the sea ye cast, who since in your despite hath wax'd amain, and now with gleaming ring enfolds the world. Me on this cheerless nether world ye threw, and gave me 9 unlighted realms to rule. While on his island in the lake afar, made fast to the broad crag by wile, not strength, subdued with limber chains, lives Fenris bound. Lok still subsists in heaven, our father wise, your mate, though loathed, and feasts in Odin's hall. But him 2 foes await, and netted snares, and in a cave a bed of needle rocks, and over his visage serpents dropping gall. Yet he shall one day rise, and burst his bonds, and with himself set us his offspring free, when he guides Muspel's children to their bourne. Till then, in peril or in pain we live, wrought by the gods, and ask the gods our aid. Howbeit we abide our day. Till then we do not, as some feebler haters do, seek to afflict our foes with petty pangs, helpless to better us or ruin them. Come then, if Balder was so dear beloved, and this is true, and such a loss is heaven's, hear how to heaven may Balder be restored. Show me through all the world the signs of grief. Fails but one thing to grieve, here Balder stops. Let all that lives and moves upon the earth weep him, and all that is without life weep. Let gods, men, brutes beweep him, plants and stones. So shall I know the lost was dear indeed, and bend my heart and give him back to heaven. She spake, and Hermod answered her and said, Hela, such as thou say'st the terms shall be. But come, declare me this, and truly tell, may I, ere I depart, bid Balder hail, or is it here withheld to greet the dead? He spake, and straightway Hela answered him, Hermod, greet Balder if thou wilt, and hold converse, his speech remains, though he be dead. And straight to Balder Hermod turned and spake. And even in the abode of death, O Balder, hail! Thou hearest, if hearing like a speech is thine, the terms of thy releasement. Hence to heaven fear nothing but that all shall be fulfilled. For not unmindful of thee are the gods, who see the light and blessed in Asgard dwell. Even here they seek thee out in Hela's realm. And sure of all the happiest far art thou, who ever have been known in earth or heaven. Alive thou wast of gods the most beloved, and now thou sittest crowned by Hela's side, here, and hast honour among all the dead. He spake, and Balder utter'd him reply, but feebly as a voice far off. He said, Hermod the nimble, gild me not my death. Better to live a serf, a captured man who scatters rushes in a master's hall, than be a crowned king here and rule the dead. And now I count not of these terms as safe to be fulfilled, nor my return as sure, though I be loved and many mourn my death. For double-minded ever was the seed of Lok, and double are the gifts they give. Howbeit, report thy message, and therewith to Odin, to my father, take this ring, memorial of me, whether saved or no. And tell the heaven-born gods how thou hast seen me sitting here below by Hela's side, crowned, having honour among all the dead. He spake, and raised his hand, and gave the ring, and with inscrutable regard the queen of Hell beheld them, and the ghosts stood dumb. Hermod took the ring, and yet once more kneel'd and did homage to the solemn queen. Then mounted Sleipner, and set forth to ride back through the astonished tribes of dead to heaven. And to the wall he came, and found the grate lifted and issued on the fields of ice. And over the ice he fared to ocean's strand, and up from thence a wet and misty road to the armed damsel's bridge and Giles' stream. Worse was that way to go than to return, for him; for others all return is barred. 9 days he took to go, 2 to return. And on the 12th morn saw the light of heaven. And as a traveller in the early dawn to the steep edge of some great valley comes, through which a river flows, and sees beneath clouds of white rolling vapours fill the vale, but over them on the further slope descries vineyards and crofts and pastures bright with sun, so Hermod over the fog between saw heaven. And Sleipner snorted, for he smelt the air of heaven, and mightily as winged he flew. When Hermod saw the towers of Asgard rise, and he drew near, and heard no living voice in Asgard, and the golden halls were dumb. Then Hermod knew what labour held the gods, and through the empty streets he rode, and passed under the gatehouse to the sands, and found the gods on the seashore by Balder's ship. End of part 2. Recording and music are in the public domain, and were recorded by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com.